No interdimensional travel today, but this time we'll be going through the fourth dimension, as we see how Snow White's scary adventure transformed into Snow White's Enchanted Wish. So right off the bat we can see that the first change was a name change. The font is no longer in all caps, and the text is no longer an impression, but instead bulges out. The exterior facade is now much more inviting as it is brightly colored, just drawing you in like an evil witch. A turret now has a decorative seal with SW adorned upon it. The rickety tree on the left has been removed, and there are now vines growing on the side of the wall. Also, the vines on the right have been trimmed and are now slimmer. On either side of the archway there is now a different style of lamp. And also inside the archway, there is a new lantern that is hanging instead of just posted above. The skulls that were once at the base of the ravens appear to have been plastered over. The bronze book has now been replaced with a more easily readable book. This book is now placed in front of the center door instead of the one that's off to the left. The pedestal is also different. The apple that would trigger the cackling when touched has been removed. The door that this book is placed in front of has also changed, as it is now emblazoned with a beautiful scene of nature. Where the dungeon once was, we now find Snow White's room, and there's also a book depicting a piece of the story. Beyond the removal of all of the spooky props and the addition of the enchanted ones, the most interesting feature is how there's been a window carved into the wall. And this is not a regular window, this is a show window that has perpetually daylight behind it. Much like the props, the eerie audio has also been removed, and now we get some more humble music. The loading area now has a lot more energy, as there's now flowers, birds, squirrels, and even butterflies adorning the cottage. The trees in front of the cottage are now more realistic, and the ground has a lot more foliage, including some mushrooms. Instead of there being tools leaning against the cottage, we now find that there are tools in a barrel. The window on the side of the cottage now has a dynamic view, as you can see the silhouette of Snow White and the 7 dwarves playing music and dancing. The owl that is perched on top of the safety sign now holds a sign that says "Hi Ho" instead of "Beware." And he no longer looks as spooky. A feature of the sign that kind of looked like eyes and a nose was also removed. As we first enter the cottage and we get a view of the kitchen, it seems like not much has changed. The main difference is that the pot's top now shakes as it boils over. Even a little bit of the steam gets released. The clothesline always wiggled by the birds, but now it seems to be a bit more invigorated. The line is also more taut, making it easier to see the fireplace. A whole lot of wall has been removed, and now there's a bunch of junk kind of taking its place. Before entering the next room, we get a good view of a clock as well as a drawer. The chair with the heart has been moved against the wall. The dresser now has one of its drawers overflowing with clothes. The teapot is now moved to the right side, and there is now a grumpy pie on top. There is also a new shelf that has been added to the wall. After rounding the corner, we find some additional changes on the stairs. There is now a new bunny on the staircase. Snow White is no longer standing in the middle of the staircase holding a candle. Currently there are now 2 barrels, and one of them has a candle on the top, but it's not the same one. It instead seems to be the one that was once on a shelf on the removed wall. The one that Snow White held had a flat handle, while the one on the wall had a spiral handle, just like the one that is now on the barrel. Snow White is now taking part in the festivities with the dwarfs. Now this is speculation, but it appears that the bulk of the Snow White figure has been reused. I suspect this because the torso and lower body seems completely unchanged. The face also looks very similar, except for the eyes being halfway closed, which they potentially could have done just by repainting them. Anyways, this is once again just speculation on my part. Differences beyond the half-closed eyes also include her eyelashes, as they're more clumped in the newer version. There is now a white lace that protrudes beyond the yellow dress. One of the kegs where Snow White now stands was moved into the kitchen. The bags beneath Sneezy and Dopey were moved, and there's also now a rug beneath them. Dopey's hand, which was once clutching some flowers, is now empty. As we exit the cottage, we find that the evil queen is lurking outside the window, and this seems for the most part unchanged. Where there was once just some painted scenery, we now see the tail end of the dwarves marching in silhouette form. As we get to the bend, we see that where there was once an overlook of the queen's castle, we now have the dwarves marching over the log heading to work. There are also now the addition of a couple of rabbits as well as a chipmunk. As we enter the dwarf's mine, we find some staggering differences. Where there was once just a full minecart, we now see an expanded area that has Dopey inside of the minecart, and he has jewels over his eyes. There's also now a kaleidoscopic projection all over the mine floor. The mine has been treated with a bunch of individually backlit jewels. However, a couple of elements were removed, including this cluster of jewels as well as this awesome looking crystalline structure. There is now an additional effect that makes it look like there's a mine shaft that goes really deep into the cave. There's a projected scene of Grumpy picking away at some treasure. There are now some cages suspended from the ceiling holding some jewels. These rockwork cutouts were removed and now there's a shovel. At the end of the mine, there is now Doc inspecting jewels. Here you can see the supports around this cave entrance have changed. The stalagmite at the bottom has also been removed. The vault is no longer completely sealed and instead is picketed, and this allows us to see the jewels within. As we get to the scene where the queen transforms into the hag, we find a fun, subtle difference. A table has been added, and the glass that held the potion has been knocked from it and is spilled on the floor. Where the first skeleton was once hanging, we now find equipment for generating spells, including the book that has the poison apple recipe. This is once again just speculation, but I believe that this book was indeed the same one that was used in the dungeon for the queue. It just now seems a bit more cleaned up and now has a red bookmark. The main reason why I think this is because the text, the font, the margins, they all seem the same. Also, if they were going to make one from scratch, I figured they would probably use one that mimicked the movie better. Where the skeleton that was once reaching out for the water was, we now find that the fountain's effects have changed. In fact, it seems like it just went away and now it's just black light blue. There are now a bunch of bottled potions, a bench, a box, and something on top of the box that kind of looks like a hand, but I think it might be a 5-headed cobra. There's also now what seems to be a repaired blemish that is on the wall. On another note, the 5-headed snake figure is a reused asset from the dungeon that is now defunct. You may have also noticed a skeleton scale from the last scene, which was also in the dungeon. In this corner where there was a skeleton once hanging, we now find some additional potion making ingredients and books. There's also a new projection effect of a vial that is bubbling over, causing liquid to pour into a glass. There is still a remnant of the old scene as you can see the holes where the bars once were. In the scene where the poison apple is made, we now see that the spiderweb has been taken away. This scene has also been enhanced with projection mapping technology. The apple is now larger to utilize that projection mapped effect. I'm definitely going to miss the old apple effect as I personally think it was superior. I do understand why they traded it away because it is subtle and I bet many people miss it. There used to be multiple bits of dialogue for this scene, but now it appears there is only one.
A special death for Snow.
It appears that Disney has over-ordered some of their glowing bottles, so they added the extras on this ledge. The evil queen no longer offers apples from her boat, but instead we now get a glimpse of the magic mirror and Snow White taking a bite of the apple. A new wall has been created to obscure some bright show scenes that have been added. The spooky forest has almost been completely removed except for a tree or two, and the scene where the dwarves chase the witch up a mountain has been moved forward. The mountain no longer ascends going around a corner and instead has switchbacks. The dwarves appear to be all the same, however it seems like Sleepy and Sneezy have switched places. The evil queen is no longer a physical feature and instead is an animated projection. She also is no longer nearly struck by lightning and falls off the cliff. We now find that some areas where there was spooky forest, we now find not spooky forest. In the area where there once was a colony of bats, we now find a swarm of electrical boxes. Snow White and the prince are now at the end of the forest. When Snow White wakes up, the not-so-spooky forest comes alit with thousands of shining lights, and a god ray shines up on the couple. This scene has a lot of similarities to the one that was closed down in Disney World. Once again, I'm in the realm of speculation, but I believe it is possible that these could be the same figures. As we get to the dwarves' cottage, we find that the evil queen is no longer there with the awesome floating apple effect. The door of the cottage no longer opens up, and instead there is now a pedestal with a book on top of it. The canopies of the trees that are making up the doorway now have additional foliage in front of them. The The performance of these branches used to be quite flat, but luckily now they're in a role that requires much more depth. The mountainside that the dwarves used to climb is still there, but this time there are more animals on it, a lot more foliage, as well as Snow White and the prince and his steed. The background has also been redone, and now you can see the castle with the sun behind it. At the end of the adventure, we find that it still closes off with a book. There have been sparkling effects added, and the painting is more vibrant and touched up. The bookmark is now more centered and is actually a different one, as it only has SW on it instead of the written out Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The text, "And they lived happily ever after," is now on the other page. The font has also been slightly changed and is now a little easier to read. Now there is some new text that says, "Snow White's wish had come true." White roses have been added to the base of the book. As the ride ends, we find there's a few more things to go over. The decorated stanchion as well as the crow on top are now gone, and instead there's a very plain looking stanchion. The skull and candle that were once on the ride operator's podium are now gone. It is possible, however, that this candle is the same one that is on that new table. The yellow do not cross line is now straight and no longer has this contour in it. This very sinister looking light fixture, like the rest of the attraction, was toned down and is now less scary. Wow, that was a lot of changes. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video, and please consider liking and subscribing. I got a lot of deep dives into the differences between attractions around the world that I believe no other YouTubers or anyone does on my level. So please give some of those videos a try. Thank you very much, and until next time.